sleep? Yeah, me neither. I'm glad you called, though. Yeah, instead of just, letting your mind wander to the dark places. Yeah, no, I get it. Hey, how about... I'm just waking up, but how about you let me talk tonight? And you can just kind of drift in and out if you want, okay? Okay. I know it feels like the world has lost its mind and made it more difficult for you to exist in your truth. But you're here. I know it can feel easier to disappear into someone else's version of who you're supposed to be. You've stayed true to yourself, though, and that means something. Maybe not to them. Not to the people who've chosen ignorance. But it means something to me. It means something to everyone who knows what it's like to walk through life constantly being misunderstood or questioned or, like even worse, erased. I know you've had to carry that weight longer than you should have. I know you've had to put up with the people who pretended to care about you, but only if you stayed within their comfort zone. Only if you kept things easy for them. You've seen the way people talk over you, the way they twist your identity into something they can, debate, or something they can legislate, or something they can ban. They're passing laws that don't even try to hide their cruelty anymore. They're targeting your health care, your right to exist in public, your ability to live a life that actually reflects who you are. And all the while they act like it's you who's the problem. Like your existence is what's making things complicated. But you and I both know. We both know that's not true. You are not the issue here. You've never been the issue. You've been the one trying to survive. You've been the one figuring out how to make a home in a world that treats you like a threat. Quite plainly, that treats you like shit. And even with all of that pressure and all of that noise and all of that pain to work through, you're still here. That is not weakness. That's something stronger than most people could ever understand. You know, I get you've been told your whole life that you're supposed to justify who you are, to prove it, to explain it, and to make it comfortable for others, and it feels like it never fucking ends. Every conversation, every room you walk into, there's this quiet pressure to shape shift, to edit or shrink into your shell. But my friend, here, right now, there is nothing to prove. You don't need to make sense to anyone else. You don't need to educate or explain. You don't need to change yourself for other people's comfort. You are already enough just as you are. And babe, you did not survive all this for nothing. You've been building something. Every time you stood your ground, every time you chose truth over silence, every time you looked in the mirror and decided to keep going. That's the kind of resilience most people never have to develop. But you did. And I know it's unfair, and fuck, I know it's exhausting. But still, you made it to this moment. That shit matters. I know the ignorant people are loud. The ones who fear you, the ones who pretend they're protecting something by tearing your life apart, they've got platforms, microphones, entire institutions behind them. They act like their ignorance is some kind of principle, a badge, an award that they earned, and they wear that shit gleefully. Like, cruelty is part of their identity. They'll pass law after law, each one more invasive than the last. They tell themselves they're doing the right thing, that they're preserving some kind of order. But we both know the truth, yeah? They're just fucking scared. Scared of anyone who challenges the narrow little world they were taught to believe in that has never existed. Scared of freedom that doesn't look like theirs, and most of all scared of people who don't look like them. And when fear runs the show, it turns into violence. It turns into policy. It turns into news stories that call your life a controversy. And then those stories get passed around by people who have never once sat down and tried to understand what it means to live in your skin, in your name, or even in your body. They talk about you like you're a hypothetical. They erase your reality and call it protection. It's brutal. And historically, it's not even new. But I know that doesn't make it any easier. Sometimes the hardest part is the way it wears you down in private. The way it makes you question whether you're allowed to rest, whether you're allowed to exist without constantly pushing back, whether you're allowed to stop fighting for one single fucking second without falling behind. I see that in you. I do. That quiet exhaustion, that ache, that doesn't come from one moment, but from years and years of trying to hold everything together while the world keeps doing its damnedest to pull it apart. You've already outlived so many of their expectations. Babe, you've already survived things that should never have been placed on your shoulders. You are not the one who needs to change. You are not the one who needs to adapt to a broken world. The world needs to reckon with what it has done to people like you. It needs to stop pretending neutrality and silence are kindness, because they aren't. They never have been. And even if you don't hear it often enough, you know what? I'll say it here. You're allowed to be angry. You're allowed to be tired. You're allowed to take up space without performing calmness. You are already enough, babe, even when the world refuses to see it. Especially then. There is something sacred about survival. Especially when the world has spent so much energy trying to convince you that you don't belong. You've had to carry yourself through moments when people looked you in the eye and refused to see you. You've had to sit through conversations where your identity was treated like gossip, or worse, a warning. People who barely know you have decided they get to define you. They speak about your life like it's something dangerous. They try to legislate your truth out of existence and then act shocked when you still show up. You've been told to disappear more times than anyone should have to endure. Disappear from classrooms, from bathrooms, from doctor's offices, from sports, from families, from memory, from everywhere. But you didn't. You're still here. That is not a small thing. That is everything. Because what they really want is for you to disappear quietly, without making a scene, without being loud, without being heard, without reminding them that you exist outside of their control. You haven't given them that. It's not your job to shrink yourself to make anyone else feel comfortable. It's not your job to make yourself more palatable to people who have chosen ignorance over empathy. You're not here to be tolerated, friend. You're not here to fit into some checkbox or become the exception they can point to while excusing the violence. You're here because you deserve to be fully, without apology, without compromise. And listen, I know there are days when that truth feels far, 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 far away. When it gets buried under rejection or grief or exhaustion. But I promise you, even when it doesn't feel true, it is. Babe, you're not too much. You're not making it up. You're not being dramatic. You're being human. And humanity is not something you or anybody has to earn. You were born with it. You live with it every day. And it shows up in your voice, in your laughter, in your anger, in your tenderness, in your care for others when the world shows you none. So even when the headlines get worse, even when people around you stay silent, even when it feels like you're screaming into a void, remember this. You are still here. And that is enough. This world will try everything it can to convince you that your place in it is conditional, that your safety depends on being quiet, that your acceptance depends on someone else's permission, that your future depends on how patient you're willing to be with the people who refuse to see you. But babe, none of that is true. You belong here. Not after you've changed. Not once you've proven something. Not when things finally calm down. You belong here now, in the middle of it, as you are. And I know belonging doesn't always feel real, especially when your reflection has been politicized, and when your name is a target, and when your body has been made into a battlefield. Belonging starts to feel like a luxury, like something other people get to feel, but not you, not after everything. But that's what they want you to think, that you're outside the circle, that you're too complicated, too inconvenient, too much work. But that story isn't yours. That was handed to you by people too afraid to imagine something better. And you never have to carry it again. Just set it down. That voice in your head that repeats the things they say, the people who made you feel like love had to be earned, the ones who used your identity as a weapon and then walked away before the damage was done. That is not your burden anymore. You deserve peace. Not because you've suffered enough, but because you exist. That's all. That's literally everything. So, I just want you to feel what it's like to be witnessed. Not questioned or judged. Just plain old witnessed. As a full person. With a full life. With dreams and memories and a future that's still unfolding. Your story is not over. Your name is still yours. Your body is still yours. Your dignity cannot be stripped by any law, any politician, any stranger who spits hate from behind a screen. You've already done more than survive. You've grown, you've changed, you've claimed space that was never offered to you freely. And you've done it with courage, even if it didn't feel like courage in the moment, but it was. Even when it felt like barely getting through the day, you were still building something, still becoming. And whatever comes next, whatever they try to take from you next, babe, you're not alone. You're not facing it alone. There are people who see you, who love you, who will stand beside you when it gets dark again. And when you need to rest, you can, without guilt or shame, and without explanation. Because, babe, you belong here exactly as you are. Well, I didn't mean to go on like that, and I think you actually might be asleep. But call me tomorrow if you want to. I think I'm going to go to sleep, which means I got to hang up. But I hope you sleep well, and we'll talk again. Good night.